The Influencer's Edge is brought to you by the Rapid Sales Accelerator. If you're ready to skyrocket your sales by 30% or more in just 90 days, then you need to claim your free training right now. You'll learn 4 words that will compel your prospects to trust you like they were children within the first 3 to 5 minutes of any conversation across any platform and any medium. You'll learn how to give your prospects objection amnesia, to crush objections like, I need to talk to my spouse, or I need more time to think it over, or it's too expensive. If you'd like to claim your free training now, go to www.paulrossbook.com. Do it before your competition does it now. Welcome to the Influencer's Edge. This is the place where you come to get the latest breakthroughs, cutting-edge insights, tools, and techniques to leapfrog over the pack in sales, persuasion, and influence. Be sure you visit our website at www.theinfluencersedge.com. And while you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now sit back, tune in, and enjoy today's episode. All right, welcome to the Influencer's Edge. I just want to remind everyone that today, anything and everything I say could be used against me in a court of law. I do have the right to remain silent. If I have the right to have an attorney present during questioning, if I cannot afford one, I will be appointed one by the court. And with that dramatic introduction, I want to introduce today's guest, Holly Bertone. Hello, Holly.
Oh my goodness, so much. I feel like I need to go bump bump. Like the TV show.
Well, now, the reason I'm giving Holly this kind of introduction and sort of playing with her and you folks is Holly is a former FBI chief of staff for counterintelligence. We'll get to what you're doing right now, but FBI chief of staff for counterintelligence, we'll take 5 minutes. And I promise we'll dive into your current field of expertise and passion. What does that mean? What is counterintelligence, and how did you rise to chief of staff?
Oh my goodness. This is such a crazy story because working for the FBI was actually my dream when I was 17 years old and a senior in high school. So it was literally a dream come true. I was actually doing some consulting for Booz Allen Hamilton, and 9/11 happened. So we all had the opportunity to get our security clearance. Well, I got my clearance, and one of my former project managers worked down in Quantico. And he's like, hey, we've got some openings. Do you want to come down and work for the FBI? And I was like, I'll be there in 45 minutes. You know? So that's how it started. And I started working in the post 9/11 environment when they were just starting to get the Patriot Act ramped up and some of the FBI's capabilities. And I was a project manager. I was a data nerd and a project manager. I wasn't an agent. But what I did was and then they set me up.
Wait. You didn't get back a gun?
No. I mean, I went to the range plenty of times.
Okay.
But yeah.
Right.
But yeah, so they set me up to headquarters. And what I did it was post 9/11. And you got to remember back then, the FBI was very antiquated. None of the agencies talked to each other. That's why the 9/11 Commission report came out and the WMD Commission report came out. And so they wanted the agencies to talk to each other, but then internally they wanted them to talk to each other. So that's what I did was I took these disparate pieces and of the FBI, looked at the recommendations and started putting programs together. So I did that 4 or 5 times. I guess they liked what I did, and they offered me the chief of staff position for the counterintelligence office. So we oversaw all the project management and the data analysis, and actually did some really cool projects because, again, systems still very antiquated. And we actually got to.
We don't want our enemies to know that our systems are up to date. Number one, we could beat the Mossad, right?
Yeah, this was years ago. This was post 9/11. So, but yeah, so I would we would basically look at trends in the counterintelligence division, and just kind of see what the bad guys were up to, and predict future capabilities with those trends. So that was a lot of fun. I was, again, data nerd.
Well, that was way before AI. I'm imagining
Oh
now
my goodness, years.
AI
Yeah.
predicts stuff that and it's so highly classified that maybe the president knows, and that would be a special access program.
Yeah. That would actually be interesting to know what AI could do for things like that.
Yeah, and you don't know where the aliens are, do you? I always ask anyone who comes on the show if they know where the aliens are. I'm assuming you don't.
I can't. I
You,
can't talk about
you can't talk about it?
that.
For real? For real? Or are you joking? You're
No,
joking.
I'm joking, I think.
Okay, all right. All right, cool. And I promise you we'll dive into your true passion and what you're doing. But what exactly is counterintelligence?
Yeah. So everyone thinks that counterintelligence is spying on the bad guys, but counterintelligence is actually spying on the bad guys spying on us.
I think I get that.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Okay, spying on the bad guys who are spying on us. So we're trying to
So
figure
when you
out,
think of the easiest way to explain this would be like a espionage case where someone would go in and steal secrets, either government secrets or corporate secrets, and we're making sure they don't steal the secrets.
okay, cool. Well, we're going to move and just one last question, I promise.
Mhm.
We were talking before the show that you had a level of security clearance. I don't know if we can mention what that level of security clearance is or not. Can
It
we
was
mention?
it was a standard top secret TSSCI.
Which means you only saw a bit of the picture. You never saw the full picture.
Yes.
Well, good.
Well, kind of. In project management, we got to see it just depended on what we were working on. But yeah, sometimes we got to see bigger pictures because of looking at, these programs in a holistic perspective.
Okay. This is very interesting. You use the word holistic because I want to see, and this is a question I'll circle back to later, how the whole holistic approach that you learned from your work at the FBI, you somehow mapped over to your work doing what you do now. So let's read your bio. I'll whip right through it. Holly Bertone is a former FBI chief of counterintelligence turned holistic health coach. So here we go. You mentioned the word holistic. That word is thrown around like quantum. I have quantum vitamins. I have quantum water. So what does holistic mean to you? Does it mean crystals and chanting and incense? What does holistic mean to you?
Yeah. So, as a holistic health coach, I view it from the perspective of looking at our health and wellness as a whole being. So many people think, oh, well, so for example, I have an autoimmune disease. I have Hashimoto's, which is a thyroid disorder. So I go see an endocrinologist and he looks at my thyroid, and that's all he does. So, whereas I look at the body from a holistic perspective and look at all of I call it the machine. So meaning and purpose, your associates, your social spiritual, your calm, your inner stillness, the MACH, just the hibernation, the sleep you're getting, the ingredients that you eat every single day, the being your time in nature, and then exercise.
Well, I'm missing one of those, time in nature. It's just
Mm,
I'm living in the city. That's going to make a big difference in what's going on. You know what's ringing a bell for me is I see naturopathic physicians.
mm,
They definitely take that approach for me. They have gotten
yeah.
rid of chronic fatigue and helped me have tremendous levels of energy. So are you
And a lot of what we do too is getting to that root cause. So rather than saying, here's the symptom, here's a pill, it's okay, let's start peeling back those layers. Let's get to that root cause and see what's actually causing it. If we can address that root cause, then, chances are. So, for example, let's say you have a rash on your arm or something, I don't know. And you go to a doctor and the doctor is going to give you a cream for the
yes.
rash
Yeah.
versus someone in the holistic health space, a naturopathic doctor, functional practitioner would ask a bunch of questions, go back and say, okay, there's probably some chronic inflammation going on. Let's get to the root cause. Let's see, is it something that maybe is, if it's like a skin thing, maybe it's your laundry detergent, maybe it's some toxins in your home, maybe it's something you're eating. So, it's going back, it's swimming upstream and going back to that root cause.
Got it. I really do get it. And I'm just thinking about the fact that I think our entire environment, at least here in the city, I don't know how it is. You said you're in the middle of nowhere in Pennsylvania, so you cannot be tracked. um, at least here in the city, our environment is incredibly toxic. I think you cannot live a healthy life unless you're seeing someone like yourself or a naturopath. It's a necessity because everything is poisoned here. Am I being paranoid, or is that the case?
Yes and yes. I feel like we are bombarded with toxins. I feel like there's a lot that we're not being protected from, that other countries have certain chemicals that they just ban, that we allow in our foods, that we allow on our lawns, that we allow in our skincare and our cleaning products and things like that. And yes, we are being bombarded, but at the same time, it's they're everywhere. So, one of my goals is to help to minimize that, but do it in a way where we can still live our lives, still be human beings on this planet, and the conveniences that we do, but just do it in a way that is not quite so bombarding to our system.
Tell me about your own story. So, as I understand it, looking at your bio, you were quite ill at some
Yes.
point, correct? You had a very bad autoimmune disorder. And I know I have a dear friend who's like the sister of my heart. She's not my flesh and blood sister, but she's very autoimmune compromised. She can't be near EMF. For those of you who don't know, that's electromagnetic frequency. I used to believe that was hogwash until I saw how she was affected by it. What was your story? How did you first realize that you were ill?
So the first step was breast cancer. And I was diagnosed on my 39th birthday.
How
And I
terrible.
went, yeah, and I went through surgery, chemo, and radiation. But what happened was I kept getting sicker. And it was a year later was when I was finally diagnosed with Hashimoto's, which is an autoimmune disease. And my health just kept deteriorating to the point where I needed to resign from the FBI because I was like, I just couldn't work. And that's when I decided I took a moment in time and I marinated in my misery, but that's when I decided to become a health coach because in my head, I just wanted to get better. I just wanted to heal myself or at least get, 10 or 15% better. And I had no idea the path that it would lead me down. I had no idea I would end up, coaching clients and making this into my entire life. And it's amazing, but there's also things that, they don't teach you in school. They give you the textbook stuff, but there's a lot of stuff like you were saying, the word quantum, right? There's a lot of stuff that it also is involved in our healing that really doesn't get talked about in the schools. So it wasn't until I started going down that path is really when found my own journey of true healing, and and then being able to work. I work with women in midlife, and we work with weight issues, we work with health issues, we work with sleep and exercise and all the things, because we're just at this age range, we're just bombarded with stress, with jobs, with families. And what do we do? And especially as women, we put our own needs last. So it's we're dealing with this volcano of neglecting our health and having these poor habits. And then it becomes so big. It's like, oh my goodness, I don't even know where to start. And that's where I come in.
Let me back up because chemotherapy is serious stuff. I know it destroyed my brother is dying of leukemia, and his leukemia is back, but the
I'm
chemotherapy,
sorry to hear
oh,
that.
I know, me too. My his the chemotherapy just destroyed his bones. It gave him he's in constant tremendous pain from the chemo. So I just wanted to bring this up. If you went, how in the world did you even have this? Was there a point where you thought, I'm a goner, I'm giving up hope? How did you maintain hope that this could get better? And did you have that's one part of the question. The second part is, did you ever have a vision of helping other people? I don't mean literally a vision where you saw saints and angels, but do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I had a non-aggressive tumor. It was the first time ever in my entire life that I was called lazy, and I was glad because they said
Indolent. They
I
call
had
it indolent.
I had a very lazy tumor. So it was small, it was slow growing, and because I was so young, we did a more aggressive treatment. So, and this was back. You got to understand, this was back when I was a sugaraholic and a junkaholic.
Wow.
I was not in the health space at all, anything close to this. So, yeah, I was eating a lot of processed. Probably 90% of my diet was processed foods. So I was living in a totally different space and time. And but no, I mean, because I was young, because we were aggressive, because it was small and slow, I never, it was, there was a worry and the fear of recurrence because
Right.
they put that fear in you.
Absolutely.
Now I know, I'm like, okay, there's a lot of lifestyle factors that you can incorporate to minimize, that risk. But back then I didn't know. But I was never like from I'm gonna die perspective. It was just, this really sucks going through it.
That's very Spartan of you. Very, I wouldn't say stoic, but that's a good perspective to have. Let me dive a little bit more into your bio here. Okay, so you made a comeback. When anyone makes a comeback from a challenge, it's not a ascending line straight. There are dips and valleys. And tell us a little bit about some of the setbacks you want. And I want to say to the audience, this is very relevant because my audience is primarily entrepreneurs and salespeople, and they have to bounce back from business failures and no and things tanking. I've gone through places where businesses have tanked and nearly put me out on the street. I'm just saying it. I'm resilient because I come from Eastern European Jewish stock that's just resilient by nature. But tell us about that journey when you were coming back to health. Did you ever have moments when you thought, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to make it, or were you always faithful that, nope, this is a straight journey. I know I got this. And who was supportive of you psychologically?
Yeah. So let me unpack a few things here and hopefully I'll remember to catch everything. When I talk about a comeback, I've had some pretty big obstacles and some pretty big adversities in my life. And I think a lot of people think a comeback and they think of something big. But really what it is for most people, it's just that accumulation of life, of all of the daily obstacles that just accumulate over time. And especially, I mean, I'm an entrepreneur.
Gold nugget, gold nugget, gold nugget. Accumulation of life. I've never heard that before. Ladies and gentlemen, write that down. I told you before we went on the air that I would do that. Go ahead. Accumulation of life.
Yeah, and I think especially as entrepreneurs, and I mean, I know I've experienced it myself, is that, it's not always the big thing. It's just the everyday stuff that just beats you down. And that's really what I like to start with the comeback, is that you don't have to have some big life experience. It could just be everyday stuff. But for me, I think the lowest point was when I had to resign from the FBI, because that was my identity. I was the person who was very successful and I did it all. And, I was at a place. I was married at the time. I had a stepson who I was raising, and I could barely take care of myself. I couldn't work. I could barely take care of my family. And I just felt like a failure. I literally felt like a failure. Like I have no worth. My self-esteem hit rock bottom at that point. So yeah, cancer sounds bad enough, and getting diagnosed with an autoimmune disease sounds bad enough. But when when that floor crumbled below me, that was rock bottom.
Do you think a part of this is a loss of a confusion around who am I now? I've lost what I identify with.
Yeah.
Now I'm confused. Who am I? So you have to grieve what you used to be, but there's confusion. And in my experience, confusion is itself a tremendous stressor, even more than fear,
Yeah.
because we as adults want comfort in the body and clarity in the mind. So confusion, was it confusing to you when
Oh,
you?
it was. Everything was uncertain too. I mean, I was barely functioning. I'm like, how am I going to live the rest of my life like this?
Radical uncertainty,
Yeah.
radical uncertainty. Did you have, I don't mean to be an interrogator, but this hits close to home. I won't go into my own story because it's none of your business, audience. Well, a little bit of it is. Did you have a religious faith that helped get you through?
Yes.
Yes. So your belief helped you recognize that there was a purpose to it. Okay. Got it.
And you had asked about, did I know that it was going to turn into something like this? I knew soon after I was diagnosed, about a month or so after I was diagnosed with breast cancer. I kept joking because I was diagnosed on my birthday that, oh, breast cancer was my, birthday gift. And I was snarky about it. I was joking about it. And I said it so many times. You see, our mind believes what we tell it. And
Yes.
I said that so many times that my brain actually believed that breast cancer was a gift. So it was about a month. At some point, I said it and I was like, oh, it is a gift. And I didn't know what that meant, but I knew that it was for something bigger than anything I knew at the time. I mean, I didn't know I would be, completely healed, completely healthy, and being able to coach amazing women with their health. I had no idea that it would turn into that, but I knew that it would be something.
As speaking to you as someone who's been an expert in changing beliefs for 3 decades, because I do hypnosis, I would expect that a big challenge you have when these women come to you is even getting them to the point where they believe things can get better. You can run all the tests and show them all the numbers, etc. But how do you, I'm sure as your clientele comes to you, they have different levels of believing, different degrees of believing that things can get better. So can you tell us some of the methodology, some of the ways you use to get them to believe that things can get better for them?
Yeah. And a lot of what I do is, I mean, I focus on the nutrition and the health and that perspective. That is a piece of the program. But really where I shine is the brain-based exercises and, just doing that first. Before we even talk about nutrition, we go to that root cause. And one of the I do a lot of different exercises with my clients. And
Tell us,
it
tell
was
us, tell us, tell us, tell
yeah,
us.
I mean, I guess it was about 10 days into the program, a recent student. And she was like, my husband brought home a bag of my favorite pretzels. And she was like, I was so excited. I ripped open the bag. And she said, I ate 3 pretzels pretty quickly because I love to just devour them. And she goes, all of a sudden I just stopped. And she goes, I was just aware of the fact that I did not want to eat the pretzels. It was like 10 days into the program. Like, that's how fast this can happen. Is just basically your brain is shifting. Like, and I like to use the example of smoking. You're either a smoker or you're not a smoker.
Yep.
And if you're not a smoker, it doesn't matter if someone hands you a free pack or a free carton of cigarettes. It doesn't matter if you're around people who are smoking, you're not going to smoke.
No.
Like, that is a solid yes and a solid no. And that's really what our brain does. And so many people think that, especially around food, that it's about willpower. Oh, I have to have the willpower, and you're going out with your friends and the extra drinks are ordered and the desserts are ordered. You're like, oh, I got to have willpower, and then you give in because it's not about the willpower. It's about switching, making those switches in your brain. And really what I love to do is go back and we go deep. We uncover the past stuff, the ugly stuff, the trauma stuff. But the thing is, so many people think that it's scary to go back there. But when you give it attention, like, it's in there, it's in you. And it's causing all kinds of, The Body Keeps Score. This great book out there called The Body
I
Keeps
know
Score.
that's by Levine.
Ah.
Body Keeps Score, and he also wrote Walk the Tiger or Walking the Tiger.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's by Peter Levine.
Okay. And Yeah, I don't remember the author. I just remember it was a great book.
Oh, smart.
Yeah. Okay. But it does. And it's like, we need to give it attention. And when you give it attention, you give it that space to dissipate. And what you can do is, we look at this stuff as the negative. But the thing is, we're still the same person. I've got a coin here. So you've got two sides of the same coin. You've got all of the negative beliefs and patterns and stories and traumas and all the stuff that got you to this place, but it also created some superhuman, superhero stuff inside of you too. So, so rather than, I get a lot of people pleasers, and people who give away their boundaries,
Right.
right? Because they are people pleasers.
There's
But the
studies on
other
that.
side of that,
Just a second. I
go ahead.
apologize. There's
Yeah.
studies on that actually link cancer to being a people pleaser. I'm sure you're aware of this is not new to you.
Yeah, I've heard of this. I'm not familiar with them, but I have heard of, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sorry to disrupt your train.
Oh, yeah. But basically turning that around into your superhuman power. Like, being a people pleaser is bad because you're giving away all of your power and all of your energy. But being a kind human being is a good thing.
Yes.
Like, you can be a kind human being and still hold your power. So basically it's figuring out how to take this stuff from the past and just flip it around. Just flip it in your brain and turn it into your superpower.
How? My question for you is, what's your methodology? Because I've used hypnosis to help people with smoking. And essentially, I don't say, oh, cigarettes taste disgusting. I
Mm,
I get them to calculate, really embed the belief that I love my life. I need my lungs to live. I respect my lungs. And so now when they see a cigarette, they think, I'm not respecting my lungs. And
mm,
it's a different reframe. But how do you
yeah.
do it?
The
Speaking
very yeah, the very first thing that we do in my program is I teach them how to just create a safe space in their body, because so often our brain thinks that everything is going on is comfort. The stress, the anxiety, all of this is comfortable. So we need to create that environment where they feel safe, their body feels safe to start making changes, to start healing, to start looking at food differently, to start forgiving, and to start opening that door. So we have some mantras that we use to really start creating safety in their body. And that is first and foremost. Second is a lot of time in the quiet, because a big piece of this is just awareness. And when you're putting out all the fires at work and putting out all the fires at home, and you don't have any space in your brain to do anything, you can't be aware. You're not present.
no.
I mean, how many people, they're standing in line at the grocery store and they're on their phones, or the second you sit
Guilty,
down,
guilty,
yeah,
guilty.
or the second you sit down to watch TV at night, and just instead of vegging out in front of the TV, you're on your laptop working, or you're on your phone scrolling, you're on your tablet. Like, we can't just be. And that is a big piece of it, is to allow that space to just be. And it sounds simple, but no one's doing that these days.
You know why
We
it's
are so bombarded with life.
the
Yeah.
other thing that makes it not simple is that in our culture, just being is confused with being lazy
Yeah.
and indolent and unmotivated.
Yeah. And then I've got, I'd say about 20 different exercises that we do, between the program and the coaching calls. And, I just usually just use my intuition with what the client needs or wants. And it's really also teaching them to have the skills to self coach. I can't be in their pocket 24/7.
No,
I want them to be empowered that, hey, when the obstacle happens, like, I had a client who was going to a barbecue, and she goes, I just pretended like you were in my pocket, and I did all the things, and she's like, I did all the things that you taught me to do. And, she's like, I was able to go to the barbecue without like spiraling down and, eating all the stuff that I know that I didn't want to eat. So that's like, I mean, that's what it is. It's not about like, I'm going to teach you and you're just going to regurgitate it. Like, they actually get to learn for themselves so that they can, the obstacles happen every single day.
Yep.
And that's a big piece of it too. The health space, the diet space, the nutrition space, it teaches what diet should I go on? How many calories should I count? What macros should I have?
Oh,
But they don't even think about, okay, gee, there's obstacles that are going to happen every single day. So when you're running late and the dog poops on the carpet and you're like, you know what? I don't have time to make breakfast. I'm just going to stop at the fast food on the way and get, something fast foody for breakfast, or just skip breakfast completely and just have coffee on an empty stomach, right? Like this is what happens. These obstacles happen and it's so easy to throw you off track.
the hit that comes up for me as I was listening to you speak and really tapping into your essence, not just hearing the words that come up for me when you work with your clients, there's the techniques that you give them and the encouragement. But I don't know if you're aware of this about yourself, but I also think you're a compassionate witness for them.
Oh, absolutely. There's a big mirror. There's a really big mirror.
You're very much a compassionate witness. There's studies that have been done that show the difference between children who suffered trauma and then recover from it and lead healthy lives and those who don't and continue to spiral as adults is the presence of a compassionate witness.
Mm.
So I think you being a compassionate witness and being able to be that because of your own suffering is what facilitates all the other techniques that you're teaching. I'm not putting down the techniques. I'm sure they work, but that essence of you is being the compassionate witness, not to acute trauma, but to everyday trauma, to chronic trauma, because I think we are all chronically traumatized by modern life and the body is injured through that. But I
I
think,
appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah.
yeah, that's what I do. I like to point out things about people and be a mirror for them and show them things that maybe they haven't seen. So let's unpack your client's journey. So your clients find you, and I'm sure you do some kind of initial intake and talking to them. Do you send them out because you're not a doctor or a naturopath or any of those other things, correct?
Correct.
You send them to a naturopathic physician or a functional medicine practitioner?
Only if they want to. We focus on getting to the root cause in terms of those patterns and stories and traumas and things like that, and breaking that tether. So that's the first phase. The second phase is all of the like nutrition and exercise and kind of the traditional holistic health coaching. And then the third phase is really what I was talking about with the obstacles and making sure I do a lot of FBI training with what tripwires are and things like that, so that
Whoa,
they
whoa,
don't
whoa,
get
whoa,
tripped
whoa.
up.
Pause, 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 pause. Okay, so now I'm seeing that your FBI training was necessary for you to be doing the work you are now because you've mapped it over, which is a
Mhm.
brilliant intellectual feat in and of itself, the ability to map it over. So you just dropped something that's a diamond, and I cannot let you get away with it, Holly Bertone. So what is a tripwire?
Yeah. So a tripwire is when it's almost like if you were in the woods and you're hunting deer or something like that. I don't know. I've never been deer hunting, but you put a wire down and the deer would like trip over the wire. So you're like you can see the deer, hear the deer, and then shoot the deer. I don't know. I'm just trying to give an easy example.
Okay.
Um, but it's basically something that is very obvious that you kind of trip over so that you know that the obstacle is there. And yeah, so that's what we do. And I'll give you the perfect example of this is I was speaking at a speaking engagement at MIT back in the spring, and I
Well,
was
not very
coming.
prestigious there. Like, you need to get some ambition, young woman.
Yeah, but here's the thing was I had to come back and I was speaking at my hometown the next day. So the flight there, the flight back had to be tight. And there was not a lot of wiggle room for any kind of delays, which was there was a lot of delays going on at the time. So I practiced what I preached and I did my planning and everything like that. Well, the flight was 3 hours delayed. So I just get out my laptop and work. I had no stress. My heart rate wasn't up, like just, okay, whatever, they'll fix the plane, they're going to get me a new one. But I'm also, the psychology major in me is, watching what everyone else is doing, and at first they were a little annoyed, and then they kind of calmed down. And then as time went on, they got angry,
Yes.
and they were going over to the gate and yelling at the attendants, like loud and inappropriately. They were, going to Dunkin' Donuts and coming back with bagfuls of donuts and
Oh
bagels.
God.
8 o'clock in the morning, they're going to the bar and drinking.
Oh
Yeah.
God.
But I was like, this is how we cope. We have not learned, or we have completely forgotten these mechanisms of how we cope. And I mean, a logical thought is, I paid for the plane ticket. They're responsible for getting me from point A to point B. They're going to fix the plane, or they're going to get me a new one. It may take a minute, but I'm still going to get there. Or I could rent a car, or I could go to another airline. Like there's options out there. But we forget, and we just instantly, we get triggered, and then instantly all the emotions come up, and it just kind of explodes. And that's just the society that we're living in today. And I witnessed that at that day, versus being able to have that regulated nervous system. And when your nervous system is regulated, right, your cortisol is lowered, and which also helps to lose weight, because that increased cortisol is going to cause weight gain.
This is one of the things that I teach, and it's not about me, but I can see the parallel. I know you cannot be an effective leader if you're emotionally unregulated yourself,
Right.
because
Absolutely.
you're going to go off on your team and the corporate culture. They're going to model you, whether they know it or not, because you write the paycheck. And so they're going to become even more dysregulated than they
Yeah.
already are. And then you've got a mess. So
And
that's
and yeah, and as entrepreneurs, we always have decisions to make. Like our head needs to be clear to make good decisions.
why I meditate.
Yeah.
That's why I meditate. And then I've recognized about myself, Holly, that I don't have the discipline. That's why I have a trainer who cooks all my meals. So I don't have to, if you can't be disciplined, have someone who's a disciplinarian who does it
Yeah.
for. And also, I love her and I want to please her. It's gotten to the point where if I cheat I get one cheat meal a week, but if I cheat other than that, I think I'm cheating on Katie. I'm betraying my love for one of my best friends. I can't do that. And I'm also at the point where if I look at something unhealthy, my body begins to feel sick.
Mm,
I'm wired to the point where I think, how's my body going to feel if I eat this? And my body will begin to feel ill.
yeah.
That's not necessarily the best strategy, but it's worked for me.
Yeah. Well, and that's the big difference too, is so often, we'll eat something and it doesn't agree with us, but again, we're not aware, and we don't put that two and two together. So we just kind of keep eating the thing, versus when you're aware, you're like, oh, when I eat X, then my stomach doesn't feel good. Or when I eat X, I get a migraine, and like having the wherewithal to be like, okay, maybe I should remove this item from my diet and see what happens. Let's remove it for 30 days, see what happens. Does the symptoms improve? And what happens if I reintroduce it? Do the symptoms reappear? And
What
right
happened?
there is your story. Like that's not difficult, right? But we just
No,
don't have the space. We don't have the space to do these things.
I could go on with you. I don't even know how much time has gone by because we've been at it. I think we're well beyond our limit, but I want to ask you one more thing. And what I want to ask you is at the end of the day, when you shut off the lights and shut your eyes and you go to sleep, what's really moved you? What has really made your day worthwhile in doing what you do?
Yeah, wow, that is a great question. And especially I got divorced 2 years ago and started over, and, just with a few different things in my life. And right now, just being in that place where I'm happy just being me, and I'm happy being able to serve the women that I can serve and make a difference in someone's life. And I know that might sound kind of cheesy, but
No, it doesn't.
that's
No,
that's
no,
why
no,
I
no.
love doing what I do. And working 10, 12-hour days, some days I love it, and I'm going to bed exhausted, but exhausted in a great way because I got to serve.
I understand. Holly, thank you so much. Now, I know my audience is going to want to stay in the conversation with you. How do they do that? What's the best way to stay in the conversation? Do not bother her and ask her if you have an FBI file, because she doesn't know. She's been away from the agency for a long time.
Yeah.
How can they stay in the conversation with you, Holly?
Yeah. So the best place, since you're already listening to this podcast, the best place is just stay on your podcast player. Go to Your Midlife Comeback Story podcast. That's my show, Your Midlife Comeback Story. And I'd recommend actually starting with episode 136, because that is where you're going to learn how to use FBI inspired tactics to uncover your weight loss blocks.
Whoa, that would make this great subtitle of a book. Are you aware that now my marketing mind is popping on? I don't know what the title would be. Uh, Be Your Own Health Spy or whatever, but that subtitle, Health Spy.
I always say I help women find the clues to prioritize their health. So yeah. Oh, and the other place too, there's a quiz on that podcast episode. So you'll get access to a quiz there. And then come say hello on Instagram at holly.bertone. And yeah, let me know what you thought, which of the tactics you were most impressed with.
Thank you. I'm impressed by how you are tenacious, how you have mapped over from your own suffering what you want and need to teach to others, and how you're intellectually quite brilliant, because being able to map over what you learned from the FBI to what you're doing now probably was not the easiest intellectual journey. And you have to be a smart cookie if you're going to rise to chief of staff. So I'm very honored to have had you on the show. Stay with me for another green room chat. Okay. Do not, here's my fear of abandonment coming up. It makes me sick. No, I'm kidding. A little bit kidding. We'll see you next time on The Influencer's Edge. And thanks again to Holly Bertone for having been my wonderful guest today. See you later, folks.
The Influencer's Edge is brought to you by the Rapid Sales Accelerator. If you're ready to skyrocket your sales by 30% or more in just 90 days, then you need to claim your free training right now. You'll learn 4 words that will compel your prospects to trust you like they were children within the first 3 to 5 minutes of any conversation across any platform and any medium. You'll learn how to give your prospects objection amnesia, to crush objections like, I need to talk to my spouse, or I need more time to think it over, or it's too expensive. If you'd like to claim your free training now, go to www.paulrossbook.com. Do it before your competition does it now. Thank you for tuning in to The Influencer's Edge, where you get the latest breakthroughs, cutting-edge insights, tools, and techniques so you can leapfrog over the pack in sales, influence, and persuasion. Remember to visit our website at www.theinfluencersedge.com to enjoy even more great episodes like this one. We look forward to seeing you again on The Influencer's Edge Show.